Hello and welcome back to Life with Randy and Grace, living in full expression today and always. Thank you for joining us. What's on our agenda today, honey?
Well, we're going to tackle life lesson, learning to let go. Why should you let go? Some people say let go and let God. It took me a long time to get this one, and there's some really good stuff here. Like the first time that I ever got this one was in right before I met you,
Oh,
and there's a little story to that. But let's talk about first of all, what's the point? Why should you let go?
because people are stressed. Because when we don't let go of things that are on our minds and on our hearts, they're actually weighing us down. I talk about this in fitness all the time. What is weighing you down? What is the weight that you're carrying? And a lot of times that is because there are things on our hearts and our minds that we just can't let go of. And so in a fitness scenario, people eat to get rid of that stress, which doesn't work, of course.
But
And
I like that
well, it sounds good and tastes good for the moment,
until your pants don't fit.
but the bottom line is when you are really stressed out, when you are worried about something, when you have anxiety over the same thing over and over again, that's why you need to let go
So it
of it.
reduces anxiety and your mental burden. That can be quite good. A lot of times we're under stress. We don't even know how much stress we're under. So that can be a big deal.
You know, the thing about letting go is that, this is so much part of what I believe in terms of my faith and Christianity. We want to handle everything ourselves.
And
Whether
control
it's control everything ourselves. We want to set the rules. We want people to live by those rules. We want our children to do the things that we think they should do, go to the schools they should go to, follow the careers we think they should have. We want to resolve all the problems. And that's a big problem. We are a big problem.
Well, I think it also allows you to develop and strengthen your faith and your trust when you realize you don't control everything, and good things are going to happen most of the time anyway, not always. But I think there's so many good things about letting go.
Well, I mean, you could spend your life worrying about the same thing over and over again. I mean, it's like,
Well, the other thing, if you keep trying to control and do things yourself, you're going to feel sometimes resentment, you're going to feel frustration, and all that adds to more stress and gets in the way of just freeing yourself up. And, when you free yourself up, you tend to get a little more clarity on the situation, perspective. Maybe everything wasn't quite as important as you thought it was. And it's just overall a good thing. It was very hard to do, though. It's easier said than done. It took me a long time to figure this out.
well, because when we are trying to be in control of everything, it's important to recognize that that is your ego talking. And ego, ego, is edging God out. We have to understand that most things are not in our control. And we have to allow for that. And in some cases, let the chips fall where they may. But if you're a person of faith, like I am, I go by this proverb all the time. Trust in God with all of my heart. Here's the key line. Lean not on your own understanding. Lean not on your own. I'm not going to be able to figure this out. Whatever I understand isn't the case. In everything I do, acknowledge and pray to God, and He will make my path straight. So when we are worrying and anxious, that's actually, like people say, I don't believe in prayer. That's actually praying for whatever it is you don't want to happen. That's exactly what that is.
Well, I really got attached to this philosophy like 35 years ago. When I was single, I had my first wife and I had separated, and and started to think about other relationships, and I didn't want to be around any women for a while, but that didn't take long. I am human. So
Really? Are you?
it's hard to believe. So, so I started thinking about maybe I should get back in the game because I don't want to live alone. I like having a companion, whether you're married or not. I like living with somebody you care about. It's the best way to live, I think. So I said, I need to find somebody. So I thought about it for a while and didn't meet anybody. So then I got the bright idea, which I was totally against for so long, to join a dating service. So because my friends were telling me, you're not going to hit a home run if you don't come to bat, if you don't get up to the plate. So you got to meet people. So they were telling me ways to meet people. And I tried, I like to sports, meeting girls that like to play golf or sports, and it hadn't really worked out for whatever reason. So I joined this dating service. So I went down this road. You fill out the forms. This is the goal. This is 35 years ago. They don't do this anymore, I don't think. But fill out the forms. Who's your ideal mate? Tell us about yourself, blah, blah, blah. So I went through all of this. So I began the date. So you don't want to go, jump in and go out to a fancy steakhouse the first date in case it's a disaster. So we started meeting for lunch.
What if she's vegan?
So we started meeting for lunch or a drink. Make it safe. Well, I had about 6 or 7 of these, and the women were nice. They were not gorgeous, but they weren't unattractive, but they were nice, and that was okay. But no chemistry, nothing really clicked, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to keep doing this because it's frustrating. So I said, well, I'll do it one more time. Last time, and I'll never forget this. This was on a Halloween night. So I had this date lined up at a hamburger joint, and so we were going to meet there. So we met there, and this woman walks in, and I know it's Halloween, but I'm not sure she didn't do this all the time. She had black hair, black dress, black fingernail polish.
She was very goth.
Very gothic. And so, we had a burger and some conversation, but I knew this wasn't going to work out. Wasn't my type. So I tried to quickly end that lunch, or I guess it was dinner. So then we went back to her car. She says, you going to walk me to my car? I said, well, sure. We walked to her car. She has a black Corvette. Everything is black, inside, outside. I opened the door for her. She said, now I'm no prize. This never happens to me, but she tried to pull me into her car. The Corvette's pretty small anyway, for some, whatever. I wanted no part of that. So I tried to politely, it was hard to do with her, exit the stage. And when I got back to my car, I said, that's it. No more dates.
This is the letting go part.
Well, I'm getting there.
Okay.
So I said, no more, that's it. So I cut the service off. So I said, I'm going to leave it up to God. I'm happy with who I am. I don't need to have a companion that bad. So I'm pretty happy. And so I said, to heck with it. Well, so I let it go. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from a good buddy of mine who says he's got somebody that he'd like me to meet. He thinks we'd hit it off, which obviously I had nothing to do with. Wasn't my effort. I let it go. And 2 weeks later, this happens. And on the scene comes Grace. And I think we got married 3 months later. It was crazy. But so that's when I started realizing letting go, especially when you can't control everything, can give you so much peace and can work out so very well. And your life is just more relaxed. However, I'm doing a lot of talking here.
You are.
But one thing I'd like to say is letting go doesn't mean doing nothing, just sitting there and leaving it all up to God. If the things you control, you can still try to make things happen, try to do the right thing, have the right frame of mind. You just don't sit there and do nothing. However, the point is there's a balance. You don't want to go to start to force things, because when you start to force things and you get resistance and you see it's not really working out, that's time to back off and leave it more up to God, because you can take anything too far. You agree?
Yes.
I'm tired of talking. Your turn.
Yes. The point is that when we are constantly trying to do things in our own effort and we are constantly striving and we are always working hard, 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 and then things don't go the way we want, we keep working harder, well, we'll fix that. And that's a lost cause. I found out many times when you feel like you are pushing a tractor trailer uphill, stop, stop. And you would be surprised that a new route will open for you and things will work out. And our producer knows a little bit about this with me. I When I first started my Being with Grace business, I had a plan. I thought I was going to do all these things. I was going to do retreats. I was going to do shows. I was going to do cruises. But the harder I worked, the fewer doors opened. And it's really an interesting thing. So I've had the Being with Grace business slash ministry for how many, 15 years now or something like maybe. Anyway, all of a sudden, and I had even, when we moved away from Charlotte, I had even hired someone, and we even put a down payment at a Holiday Inn, and could not get this retreat off the ground. So I completely forgot about it for probably a good 10 years. And I have another friend, no relation, Brenda Swartz, and we would always talk about me doing these retreats. Long story short, all of a sudden, about 3 years ago, the idea came back to me to do the retreat. So I called Brenda. I said, Brenda, what do you think? You think we should do the retreat? And she said, absolutely, Grace. We've been talking about this for 15 years. Let's do it. But I wanted to do it in about 3 months. That was November, December, January, February, March, about 4 months. And we were picking a place, and the place that we picked usually books up a year out. So we both agreed, let's do it there. But most likely they will not have the date that we want available. So I said, okay. And I just, like I just said in the proverb, hand it to God. It's your will. I called the place. The only date they had open was the date that I wanted. Let go, let God. And that was the first retreat. And it was no longer pushing a tractor uphill. Boom, boom, boom. Everything went into place. And I have had help and blessings, both by my current producer, John. He's wonderful. You'll see his name come up in the credits. John Perry. He's great. Anyway, everything just fell into place for the next 3 years. So yes, when you are constantly pushing a tractor trailer uphill, that's not something you should do. You should let go.
And when you're less stressed out, you're more likely to recognize opportunities that come your way, or be open to ideas or things, people you meet, things you hear. When you're frustrated, it's kind of a miserable life.
Yeah.
Can be.
And also, when your mind is set on exactly how something should be, your peripheral vision is gone. You're locked into something that you think has to happen when and how you think it has to happen, and you cut yourself off from all kinds of other good things. So yes, letting go is an important thing to do. For me, prayer and meditation, that's the thing that helps, because I firmly believe that God turns all things for good to those who love him. So I'm fully satisfied that I love him, and he knows that, and he'll work it out.
So, like I mentioned earlier, it's easier said than done. A lot of these things we talk about are easier said than done. It took me almost 40 years to figure out how to start to do this. But, how do you go about letting go? Well, I think the first thing that you can do is be clear about what you're letting go. Be specific about what you're letting go, and recognize that you're going to let go and not work so hard at it. And try to separate the effort from the outcome. In other words, don't focus truly on the outcome. back off on the effort, do what you can do at the right time in a balanced way, like I said, and then leave it up to God, a lot of it, not all of it, as we talked about before. That reminds me of the analogy, you probably heard this, about the guys on top of his house in a flood. And he's up on top of his house. And, a guy comes by in a boat and says, hop in, I can take you over to dry land. He says, oh, no, don't worry about it. God's going to save me. Don't worry about it. So the boat leaves. Next time a helicopter comes over and he's got the bullhorn and he says, oh, we got to send a rope down, pick you up. No, don't worry about it. God's going to take care of me. God can handle it. So the water rises, the guy drowns and he dies. He goes up to heaven. He says, God, I've praised you. I've loved you my whole life. What'd you do? You let me down. What happened? And God said, I sent the boat and the helicopter, but you turned them down. So, you do what you can do, but you don't try to do it all. So.
And you recognize also, like I was saying, when you don't have those blinders on, opportunities do come, and they are not necessarily man-made. We entertain angels unbeknownst, because they're messengers to help us.
Well, another little thing, maybe a little bit of a sidetrack, is I'm sure you all, when we all get irritated or mad sometimes, or somebody sends us a nasty email or somebody makes us mad, and we want to fire off an email and let them know how we feel, and or call them on the telephone. It's always a good idea to just relax, wait 24 hours if possible, cool off, and then more level-headed respond to it, because maybe you weren't right about everything. Maybe you were, but maybe sending off a immediate email or phone call where you're extremely critical is not the right way to approach it.
No, and there's ego again, and emotion again, and focusing way too much on ourselves. I heard a great thing today. We were in a Bible study, and we're talking about how it's impossible to have peace if you don't have Jesus. I'm obviously in a Christian Bible study. And there's this wonderful book called No Peace, No Jesus. But if you know Jesus, you will know peace. But the point is that, how do you have peace, and how can you remain joyful? And so this came up today, Joy. So if you keep this in perspective, J, Jesus first, O, others second, Y, yourself last, and you can have joy. I love that. But it is important, because all of the things that you're talking about are ego-based, and when we're attacked, whatever, that's ego. We're attacked. So we're worrying about ourselves, and let it go. It'll, if it's not true, it'll get worked out. And if it is true, then maybe you have some apologies to do. I don't know.
Well, again, all this stuff's easier said than done, but I think it really pays off and works for the most part. Another thing is hard to do is trust timing, not urgency. Sometimes things take time. We're all in a hurry, especially in today's world of instant gratification. We all want things now. But I'll bet every one of you have an example where you wanted to get something done, wanted to make something happen. It didn't happen. You're very frustrated. And as it turns out, you found out 2 weeks or 2 years later, it's a darn good thing it didn't happen, because it would have been a catastrophe. So we tend to think, we all know it all or know more than God, and we jump in there and want to make it happen immediately. And that is a lot of times not the right thing to do. So having patience, not easy, but a lot of times I talk to God, I say, God, I don't like your timing. I'm in a hurry. Are you ever going to make something happen here? Bring something by? And, his timing is not my timing.
Absolutely.
So we have to have patience.
We have to have patience. If you were all around during the 9/11 attacks, there are so many great stories about people who were desperately trying to get to the airport that day. And for one reason or another, they're stuck in traffic, something happens, they're detained, and all of these people, their stories, they would have been on those flights,
So
that crashed. So the point being,
kind of like my example, and how
yes,
frustrated
exactly like your
and pissed
example.
off would some of these people be because they missed their flight, and now they're the most thankful people in the world that they missed that flight,
Exactly.
which was not in their control.
Right. So sometimes it's understanding that challenges can also be, and most times are also gifts, and not being allowed to achieve something or get somewhere or do something in your own time is a gift because you have no idea the number of things that you might have already been protected from. So, to your point, I think the first thing you said was knowing what you want to let go of. And I think
Right.
that
Be specific.
well, I'm going to say it the other way. I'm going to say have an attitude of letting go of too many of your own expectations. That you can remain open, that you can remain with an open heart, open eyes, open ears, that there are possibilities out there that you haven't thought of and that are not in your control, and that there are good things coming your way. Another thing in my fitness classes that I try and tell my clients is make declarations. We make declarations. There's a one woman on that I came across. She says, give yourself a high five in the mirror. But make declarations about who you are and what you want, and those things will come true. I have a diary of places that I've written things down, and I wrote down a whole scenario about doing a television show and all of that, and I put it away, and 5 or 6 years later, it actually all came true. So that's another good technique for letting go. If you have something in your heart, write it down.
That's a very
Write
good.
it,
That's
write it down, and
very good technique.
and
Yep.
you can have that book on your desk, and you can pat it every morning, and you can say, I know that the Lord is bringing this my way. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Even, sometimes talk about letting go. How many times can you not go to sleep at night because you're churning and churning and churning? That's another opportunity. Get up, write it down, whatever it is. I have to do these 12 things tomorrow, or I don't want to forget these 8 things. Once you write it down, you can put it to rest that you're not going to forget it, and you can go to sleep. But when your mind is all churned up working on something that you have to handle the next day, you can write it down. That way you won't forget it.
Well, going back to the example you used a minute ago, letting go doesn't mean forgetting all about it. You can let go for a while, relax. You still tend to think about it. You don't forget about it. And lo and behold, a lot of times you see little signs that it's coming back. So when letting go doesn't mean you forget about it, it's never going to happen, it's over, and be sad about it. You never know. If you still want it to happen, it may very well happen.
Right. His ways are not our ways. His timing is not our timing. So there you go.
There you go.
Well, what are we working on letting go of now? Anything?
I don't know. I guess I've learned to let go of people that tend to do things I don't want them to do, or family relationships I think should be better. And no matter how hard I try, they don't get better. But when I let go, they got better. So I'm still working on that.
Right. And when we let go, they get better because we're no longer so intense about them. I mean,
Yeah.
letting go. I heard somebody say this once. When you are constantly worried about a particular thing, like if someone hurt you, and you're constantly going over it and over it over and over again in your mind, that is like if you have a wound and it starts to heal, and you scratch the scab off, and you keep scratching that scab off. You make it worse.
Yeah.
It never goes away. So letting go also is part of healing, because you can put it in its place and let it be there. There are people in my life who I have been hurt by, but it's where it belongs. And you know what? it heals. And if there's an opportunity to restore, it will be restored. But I am no longer stressed about them. So,
I'm having trouble letting go of our terrorist puppy. We've got this puppy, he's 7 months old. He's into everything. He's strong, he's getting tall, he's big. And I get so mad at him, and he gets mad at me right back. He's feisty. So I have to let go of, recognize
Well,
he's a puppy.
yes, you have to let go of trying to immediately,
Turn him into a mature dog.
right.
So I
But
don't
he does have a little bit of an attitude.
a little bit. Okay.
But so do you.
That's why we fight.
Yeah. Anyway, the best advice, don't worry about things that are out of your control. When you find yourself having anxiety, talk to yourself. What are you trying to push uphill? Stop pushing and allow life to happen. Again, being secure in the fact that, yes, there is good coming, that your life is not over. And, this is where, a lot of people talk about meditation, but for me, meditation is prayer. And sometimes that prayer can just be, I'm here, Lord, I'm listening. I'm just listening. It doesn't have to be asking for anything. It can just be receiving. So yes, I think that prayer is very important, and being still and knowing that He is God and He'll be there for you. He will. Anyway, I think we've covered about as much as we can about letting go. I hope that if there are things in your life that you need to let go of, that you can and you will. And again, drop us a line. We would love to hear from you. We hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for being here.